in 1983, I moved to work on East Asia, on economic issues in East Asia. So a little bit of Southeast Asia, a little bit of Japan, a little bit of China, and a whole heck of a lot of North Korea. But at that time, I remember like it was yesterday. At that time, there were, at that time the big theme was the coming economic dynamism of Asia. There were four entities. I'm not going to say countries. You'll see why in a minute. There were four entities that were really exploding economically, and they were Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. And they all used the same economic model, which was educate your population, give them the best education you can give them, and then take an export-led approach to growth. And they were on fire. They were growing 7-8% a year. And there's another big country that obviously had the same capability, China.
Yeah.
Right. It hadn't started yet, and that would come later. But I remember before the first Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC summit that President Clinton went to, myself and another person were asked to brief him about this economic dynamism and what it meant for the United States, what the potential was for the United States. It was a great briefing. We were told we were going to brief just the president and one of his aides, and we walked into the room and there were like 30 people there.
Nice surprise.
My nerves, right, which were already high, went sky high when, I saw Larry Summers in the room. It's like, oh my God, smartest man on the planet. But it was a great briefing, and the theme was that the United States has a whole heck of a lot to gain from this dynamism that is being created in East Asia. That we will benefit from this was the theme. And at the same time, maybe 10, 15 years later in this story, not at the same time, but a little time afterward, China was beginning to integrate into the global economy. And China was now what these Asian tigers were, these four countries, these Asian tigers were, a few years earlier. And China was now educating its population, moving people to cities, raising their productivity, and undertaking export-led growth. With a pretty significant tinge of capitalism thrown in there. And then we made a policy decision to fully invite them into the global trading system. And so what happened as a result of all of the dynamism in East Asia and the rise of China, as you know really well, globalization manifested itself. And you could see American companies, European companies, companies around the world creating extensive supply chains, looking at the opportunity from creating supply chains to reduce their costs, to make them more competitive. And that happened to a very significant degree, as you know, right? Creating significant interdependence, right, between them and us. Raising standards of living around the world, including in the United States. Can't forget that. Economists estimate that globalization probably raised real incomes in the United States by 15%. Now, it wasn't evenly balanced, and that became a political problem later, right? But it did raise average real incomes. And so the world became a place where there was tight supply chains, where, the different pieces of a product could be manufactured in 10 different places and all go to China to be integrated in the final product and then to be sent to the United States for sale, right? And this would all become, a major issue later. But at the time, It was all about economic efficiency. It was all about raising income, raising standards of living, and that played out. I saw that playing out during my time working on Asia.